as soon as I read this news from your colleague Adrian Wojnarowski, I'm like, I got to get Jay on here to talk about it. What's your thoughts on Woj's report that Dan Hurley and the Lakers are talking, and the Lakers have been relentless in their support of trying to get him? Jay?
I'm not surprised, Rich. I mean, Danny Hurley is the preeminent coach in the game right now, and he's certainly the top college basketball coach. And I think for the Lakers, who have had, I think, 7 different head coaches since Phil Jackson left, establishing a coherent program that's going to last long term really makes perfect sense. And with the way Danny Hurley operates, especially the way he operates on the offensive end, I think you've seen a lot of us in college kind of documenting and diagramming the offense that he runs. It's really kind of a European pro style that the NBA has been moving toward. So I think he'd be great if he wanted to do that. I'm not one, though, that thinks that the current landscape of college basketball is that big of a variable that it's something to get away from. But it's hard to turn down not only the financial package that the Lakers are reportedly going to throw at Danny Hurley, but the idea of the challenge of coaching in the NBA and being able to have the leeway to put together that type of program on the NBA level would be really attractive.
Okay, so let me take a few of piece by piece what you just said. So you think what he has put out there on the court to win back-to-back championships in UConn, X's and O's, that would fit the NBA? You think it would be a good transition, a successful one?
Not only good, I think it'd be great. I think that offense is next level good, and the type of conceptual play that the NBA is looking to be able to use. And there can't be a single NBA coach out there that wasn't watching UConn play that say we can use some of this. This would be good for us. But more than that, to me, it's not just an X and O thing. I think anytime you get in a cycle of bringing in one person and thinking that, okay, we bring this person in, we'll see if it works, and then 2 years later, we'll try somebody else, that's not sustainable in my view. And I think this sort of commitment to a coach, and specifically Danny Hurley, I thought it was really interesting when Woj brought up the point about establishing a program, that the Lakers want to establish a program. And I just can't think of a better program person than Dan Hurley. Look, there are going to be some idiosyncrasies that if he takes this, the Lakers are going to have to get used to. Like, he's ridiculously, he's got all these things that he likes. He wears the same socks, and when he wins, the underwear doesn't change. Hopefully it's washed. But all these superstitions that he has, they'll have to get used to that kind of stuff. It's funny, Rich, he asked me last year, UConn was playing in Seattle. They were playing Gonzaga. And I was at their practice, and he asked me, hey, would you speak to the team? So I did. And then later on in the season, I was at UConn, and he said, would you speak to the team again? We won last time you spoke to the team. I said, you win every game. Like, whoever speaks to the team. But it wasn't the message he cared about. It was just the superstitious thing of you spoke to the team and we won. And they had just come off a loss to Creighton, and apparently they needed to win so much they wanted to hear my BS again.
You're a factor, Jay. There's no doubt about that. But in all seriousness, the stuff that we see Dan Hurley do in a huddle, for instance, admonishing his players for the huddle not being tight enough around him when he's calling a timeout. Does that stuff work in the NBA, or you think he'd have to modify what he's doing with grown-ass men with long-term contracts? What do you think?
I mean, you might have to modify the volume of some things. I think Woj also pointed out when I saw him earlier today, and it resonated that Dan Hurley told him, look, I talk to my son a lot differently when he was a teenager than I do now that he's a grown man. And it's the same sort of thing. The message can be the same. The delivery might have to change a little bit. I think college coaches have a little more leeway talking to teenagers and young adults than you might have talking to, as you put it, grown-ass men. But that's more of a volume thing in my view. I don't think a lot of coaches talk about their huddles and how they communicate and how they relate to one another on the NBA level. So that's not a big deal. I think the concepts wouldn't change all that much. I mean, even going back to when Coach K was coaching the Olympic team, I was lucky to be around a little bit with some of those teams when they were working out in Vegas, and I didn't hear anything different than he used with his Duke teams. It wasn't substantially different. The length of practices was a little bit different, but other than that, it was a lot of the same stuff conceptually. And I think you see the same thing with Dan Hurley. Basketball is basketball, and he's a great basketball coach. And I think greatness doesn't really know a level.
And then also in your first blush answer, Jay Bilas here on the Rich Eisen Show, in your first blush answer in reacting to the news that the Lakers are relentlessly pursuing Dan Hurley, he is listening. There is traction. Those are all words that Woj used on ESPN. You mentioned the current state of college sports and how the world of basketball isn't similar, I guess, if I'm putting words in your mouth, to the college football conversation where, Jim Harbaugh left Michigan after winning a national championship there, and part of the conversation, obviously, is whatever was going on between him and the NCAA was something he probably wanted to get away from. Also, the general sense that college football has changed so much that there's less coaching involved and more administrative and all sorts of portal and NIL sort of business. And I'm already hearing that subscribe to this conversation involving Dan Hurley, that maybe this is a perfect time to get out of college athletics and go to the pros. You don't subscribe to that for college basketball, Jay?
Not as the leading factor, Rich. I think it can be one factor, but it's not the leading factor. I don't think that Dan Hurley has in any way been unhappy in college basketball. There are always things that are minor annoyances, but look how quickly he was able to take last year's roster and turn it into an equally talented roster that he has for next year. I mean, UConn's going to be, from a talent standpoint, top 3 or 4 in the country going into next year. And given their track record, I wouldn't be surprised if they were not only a contender, but if they were a three-peat. That's possible. Now, does that mean you walk away from that, or it makes it harder to walk away from that? But I tend to think it's more going forward. If he decides to do this, he's going towards something, not away from something, if that makes sense.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.